I want to see that the owner benefit. So everything that comes out of the firm to the good of the owner. And I always ask them, what's your next act, right? What are you going to do after you sell? For the most part, most people are retiring, but even retiring lawyers can crater their own sale by not really thinking through what the next stage in their life is. And if their persona is wrapped up in being a lawyer, that can be problematic.
Today, if you are a law firm owner and you have the goal of selling your law firm one day, you are going to learn the 3 KPIs that you should be tracking and measuring in order to sell your law firm for the number that you want to sell it for one day. You're also going to learn why and how marketing is going to play such a significant role in that merger or acquisition. I'm Ashley Robinson, CEO and founder of Green Cardia Marketing. So let's get into it. Ed, how are you? Thanks for joining me today.
I'm doing great, Ashley. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So tell everybody who you are. What do you do?
I'm Ed Alexander. I'm an attorney in Orlando, Florida. I have a business transactional law practice. I'm also a principal in Fitzgibbon Alexander, which is a consulting and brokerage firm. I typically help professionals, mostly law firms, with purchases, sales, partnerships, and other transitions.
Okay, so the coaching or the mentoring and helping them through that transaction, and then you can actually do the transaction. Is that right? That process of how that works?
Yeah, that's right. So what on the brokerage side, I've got the skill set to go and do kind of these pricing opinions for the transaction and to put the financial metrics in place. And I came to this because I had a couple of people come to me who said, hey, we're going to do this deal with our law firm. And intuitively, I used to be an engineer before I was a lawyer. So intuitively, I said, that ain't going to work. You could just tell the numbers weren't there. And so I started creating a spreadsheet to show the client why the numbers wouldn't work. And then I started doing it for more and more deals and showing them, hey, here's a better way to structure this deal. And here's, what the appropriate price is and all of that. So when people come to me, we look over their tax returns. We'll come up with a full recast pricing opinion. We'll put the deal terms together and then, show it to them how it's going to work.
So when you're looking at these firms, what would you say is the average timeline that they're coming to you in advance of that M&A or M&A business transaction? How often or how early are they coming to you before that?
I break the transactions into 2 types. There's internal and external, right? So if somebody's looking to sell externally, we're typically seeing them between a year and 2 years ahead of time. Occasionally I'll get a call from somebody and they'll say, well, I want to be out by December 31st. And I'm looking at the calendar and it's August. And you're like, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Right. And then other times you'll get people way ahead of time. And those are great when they call you 4 or 5 years ahead of time, because really helps. You can show them how to de-risk the firm and really increase its value. On the internal sales side, so this is typically selling to an associate or one of your partners, then that's going to be usually, a 6-month type deal as the deal is put together.
So let's say someone comes to you for the external sell. What is someone that you say, man, they've really done it right? What are a few of those bullet points that you're at home at dinner at night and explaining to your family of, man, I got this client today and they've really done everything the right way? What are a few of those things?
Yeah, the first thing, and really kind of the overriding principle, is the firm is not dependent on them, right? So they have a role in the firm, but if they take a vacation for a month or something like that, the firm isn't going to fall apart, right? And so that means that they've got really good team members and they've got really good processes. And the team members are following the processes and things are kind of moving along. There are always problems. There's no perfect firm. But if you can offload you being the hero into you being the business owner, that's really the number one thing. The second piece is that they've got a steady, what I call deal flow of prospective new clients, and that they convert a reasonable number of those, a reasonable percentage of those into paying clients. And to do that, you've got to have that avatar client. You got to know who you really want to work with and how to talk to them.
So you're looking at their lead flow and their conversion rate. So you're looking at their marketing strategy to see how consistent it may be through the cyclical nature of the year. Their practice, every practice area has a cyclical nature to it. So you're looking at their overall marketing strategy and see how consistent it is.
Kind of indirectly, but yes, we're looking at that through the numbers, through, for example, right? I'll see firms that have these gyrations in numbers over the past 5 years. Now with COVID, not everybody, but a lot of people had a down year in 2020 and maybe even 2021. But if I start to see gyrations in 22, 23, and 24, where you're up 10%, you're down 20%, you're up 30%, right? That's to me an indication I got to look behind the scenes and figure out what the heck is going on here. And oftentimes it's just, oh, well, I didn't market in 23 and I realized my revenues were down. So I started marketing in 24, that kind of thing.
What are some other KPIs that you look at? So you talked about the conversion rate. What are some other key performance indicators that you're looking at?
I want to see that the owner benefit. So everything that comes out of the firm to the good of the owner, whether that's their salary, their 401k, their automobile, whatever it is, I want to see that number is about 35% of the gross revenue, because that's where it should be, about 35 to 40%. And that's what we have databases. So if I pulled the data and I do an analysis of it, that's generally where it's going to be, in that 35 to 40%. So if somebody's lower than that, I want to look behind and say, okay, well, is that an employment cost issue? Is it some advertising that just isn't working? What's the cause behind it?
Interesting. So Ed, if there's a lawyer watching this and they're saying, I think I want to go through an external or internal, some form of a merger acquisition in the next 5 or 10 years, and they call your firm, what are a few questions that you're going to ask them? Because if they know the questions you're going to ask them, then presumably they can start getting ahead of those problems and questions and buttoning up the things that you're going to ask for.
Well, the first thing I want to know is, and I always ask them, what's your next act, right? What are you going to do after you sell? The way the multiples work with law firms is that for the most part, most people are retiring, but even retiring lawyers can crater their own sale by not really thinking through what the next stage in their life is. And if their persona is wrapped up in being a lawyer, that can be problematic, right? So I'm looking at that. Where are you going? And having a good retirement is essential to that. The second part of that is, what is the marketing? How do you bring in business, right? What is that process? And can we make that process work for somebody else, or is it tied solely to you? And if it's tied solely to you, how do we start to transition into another process that isn't tied solely to you? And that's really where having a 5-year runway is beautiful, because you can do a lot in 5 years. Look, it's tough to do a lot in 1 year, but it's very easy to do it in 5 years.
I could not agree more, especially on the marketing side. I mean, it is often a big ship that we might be trying to turn or just shift the course of the way it's going. And we're dealing with so many factors. And so the longer runway that we can have, the better. Ed, let's talk about your firm. What have you done in your firm? You have a successful law firm. What have you done to help grow your firm? What have been a few maybe marketing or growth strategies that you've done that have gotten you to where you're at?
The first thing I did was write a book. And so I had a little bit of a transition. I was in-house for a while, and then I left, not in-house in a corporation, but in a large law firm. And I left that law firm and needed to go out and really drum up a bunch of business. So I had a book. I went out and talked to anybody who would listen to me about what's in the book. And I distributed that book to anybody who would put their hand out. And that really worked well. I got a lot of people calling me. And then we started developing more of the books. And then I developed you called it a nurture sequence. I call it a follow-up sequence. But basically communicating with people on an ongoing basis. And in 2018, we hired a marketing director who really helped us get a lot of things squared away. I was kind of hobbling along. I would work on one thing here and then one thing there. And, I had a list of 15. Once I brought him on, I was able to get all 15 things done. And it really advanced us quite a bit by having that person on. I now have a marketing coordinator, and same thing. She really picks up the ball and runs with us on a lot, runs with things on a lot. And then writing the different books. Now, at the time I wrote the first book, we had a more general business practice, and I've really niched down into the professional service firm and also business purchases and sales. And so I wrote books specifically for those niches, however you want to say it. And those have made a huge difference because we advertise the books here and there. We probably could do a better job of that, but people will read the book and they'll quote stuff back to me, and they'll do their own worksheet that's in the book and then send it to me and say, hey, I did this worksheet, and before we have our strategy session. So it's great.
Yeah, we talk about the marketing funnel that's really nurturing them down that funnel. Where does your podcast play into your marketing strategy for your firm?
So I'm part of a group that is a mastermind, and we kind of talk things through. And one of the suggestion was doing the podcast. So I started that in January of 2024, and we've been going ever since. I would encourage anybody who does a podcast or video and I'm not sure I'm out of this stage, but in the beginning, it's going to look crappy and be horrible, and you just got to do it. You just got to go through it, but don't let that hold you up, because so many people do. But really, I think the most important thing we did was really developing that deeper niche, and going into that deeper niche is part of what the podcast is about. We've really narrowed it down. It's called Law Deals. And so, it's meant for lawyers who are looking to do a transition with their law firm, whether that's a partnership or whatever.
What on the other side, Ed, what have you done that has not been as successful? Or if you're talking to 10 years ago, Ed, what would you say? Hey, probably don't waste your money and time on that one thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I tend to be pretty positive and I try to put those things out of my mind. But, I guess there were advertising stints. Oh, this was the fun. You'll love this. So at one point we were like, oh, let's do advertising. There was a talk radio station in Orlando, and I thought, okay, it would be interesting. We had the book, so that was going to be our offer, is go get the book. And so we went and set up some advertising, and, first off, really nothing ended up coming of it. Nobody went to go get the book, so we weren't talking to a good market there. We were talking to way too many people. But then the radio station, they had some really bizarre ideas in how we should change the marketing and all of that. So advertising on the radio did not work. We did a few, kind of pay-per-click advertising, but again, at that time we were more general focused. And so now we're doing advertising in the Florida Bar News, which is directed specifically to Florida lawyers. And so I do a lot of referral-based relationship building with people who are also talking to other lawyers.
So you've worked through the ugly monsters hiding behind in the world of legal marketing, and you've found what worked over time. And what I hear, Ed, is you've done some trial and error. And what has led you to the current marketing strategy? Is it just looking at KPIs and just following the numbers? How over time have you developed the strategy that you have now?
So that mastermind group that I'm talking about is very, very helpful. A couple of great books that I really love. There's a book called Renegade Lawyer Marketing. And, so it's kind of almost like, you may be familiar with this, the Dan Kennedy kind of method of marketing, right? And trying to implement that is really, so, when I look at it, I say to myself, okay, we did this, what's the return? We did this, what's the return, right? So maybe that's what you're referring to in the KPIs, is kind of spending money, getting kicked in the butt, and realizing, well, that was a waste. I could have put that on a nice vacation, right? And then moving to the next thing and trying that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's as long as you're letting the KPIs tell you the story in all aspects of your business, I don't think you can go wrong. It's worth trying different things, and sometimes you're throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. And often that's where you might be in your marketing as well, is seeing what might be working, because you might not know what your audience is going to react to. It's going to take trial and error, like you said, with your podcast. You just got to do it. And it's not always going to be pretty.
It isn't going to be pretty. That is for sure. You got to work your way through it. I mean, you got to recognize you're going to make mistakes, and you just, it's just going to happen. And it's always funny. I mean, my daughter played lacrosse when she was younger, and she had a hard time in the beginning, and I would always tell her, hey, look, it's going to be hard in the beginning. You just got to figure it out, right? You just got to keep doing it. It's the same exact thing.
It is. And speaking on the marketing side, there are many marketing channels that are not just flip the script and they start working. Paid ads should to some degree, but your other marketing channels, your organic marketing channels, are going to take some time. They're going to take some time to grow and to develop. So you just got to you got to have a little patience. Make sure you're looking at the data, looking at the KPIs, and looking at them often. It's making small adjustments. And if you've got some patience behind all of that, you'll see some fruits of your labor.
The mindset is really essential there too, because like, for example, sometimes I have trouble coming up with content for well, by the way, we also do a print newsletter, which is absolutely crucial because it really keeps us top of mind awareness in people who are sending us work. But we have to come up with content constantly for those things, right? And so, changing that mindset to say, the thing that I've worked on that I've done 15,000 times, there's somebody out there who hasn't done it once, and they're interested in that, particular transaction. So even though you might be bored of it, it's still okay to write about it.
It is. And I'm glad you said that, Ed, because I often find that I'm saying the same message over and over and over in our videos and our podcasts and the content that I put out. I might just try to frame it a different way. And that's hard for me, but I have to remind myself to not be so arrogant, to think that your audience has seen the video you did last week about this marketing topic. They haven't. And it's okay to say it again and maybe say it in a little bit different angle or a different viewpoint, but they haven't heard it. Say it again, say it in a different way. Even if they have heard it, they're being inundated with so much information now. Find your few key talking points and marketing points and just say them in as many different creative ways as you can.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, over and over again, when you're getting bored, it means your marketing's working. I think I heard that somewhere.
That's you should coin that one, Ed. Well, tell everybody how they can reach out to you and get a hold of you. Where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Attorney Ed Alexander, or obviously at our website, which is alexanderbusinesslaw.com. And feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ed, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really grateful and appreciative for your time.
Thank you, Ashley. Great to be on.